America.
America!
I do love America.
Be a part of the show at 850-233-9988. The Kramer Show on NewsTalk at 101.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is 5 minutes after 7 o'clock. Joining us on the phone today, the one, the only, former pro tennis player, author, speaker, fantastic, all-around, swell, good-looking, handsome, rich man, and somebody who can kick the insurance company's ass. Well, now I feel like it's anticlimactic. My music stopped. God, killing me. Absolutely killing me. Scott Mager from Major Peruis and the Storm Help Team joins us today. Hello, sir.
How you doing today, pal?
I am hanging right on in there, my friend. Look, realize you take in the idea that it's the year anniversary is in a couple of days, 2 days?
It's extraordinary, man. Extraordinary that everybody hasn't been compensated fully and that we aren't celebrating the recovery.
By the way, you didn't thank me for calling you handsome. It kind of bums me out. And, I really went out on a limb there, and I put myself out there, comfortable enough with my sex.
It was ridiculously cool.
I put my masculinity, out there. I took and then I just went for it, and I get nothing. It has been a year, and I was talking about it earlier. It seems like even more than a year. And I was also talking about this guy, the owner, the gentleman who owns my home, who rent for. He lives out in Jacksonville. I never see him, but occasionally I'll have to do maintenance and stuff on the house. And he sent out the termite guy. And the termite guy comes in, and he's got his flashlight, and he's looking all over the house, and he and I started talking about the hurricane. And I asked him, I said, how did you fare? And he goes, actually pretty good. He goes, I had some trees down on my house, needed a new roof, needed this and that. And I reached out to my insurance company, told them how much I needed, and in 2 weeks, they sent me a check. And I was floored. And he goes, everybody I tell that story to tells me that is one of the most insane things that they've ever heard. And then he said that his church withstood a lot of damage and that the insurance company was really lowballing them. They hired a public adjuster who came in and raised, how much that they thought they were going to have to get, and the public adjuster still couldn't do it, so they had to hire an attorney. The attorney came in, they got a check, and he was telling me the intricacies of that. But that sounds like right up the alley of what's happening right now is a lot of people may have tried to go it on their own. They may have got a public adjuster, and at this point are finding out that they do need a Scott Mager of the world.
Yeah, it's been a revealing experience for many people, and it's been an eye-opening experience for everyone in terms of what their perception was of what would happen with regard to, getting paid money or getting full compensation. And I think that we've shown through all of the lawsuits I've had to file and the ultimate payments that are being made almost in full or extremely close to in full, that you need to have the services of a lawyer in order to properly motivate the insurance companies to do what the contract appears to say they should do. And I can only continue to emphasize to everyone that it is so important for them, if they do not have a lawyer working for them now, to make sure they get the lawyer involved. And if they fail to do so, they may continue to have these problems. And there's also people out there that have been paid a smaller amount of money than they're owed, and they should not give up on that. They should make sure they got paid in full. They can file a supplemental claim if they haven't been fully paid, or they can seek the advice of a lawyer if they believe they have not been fully paid. But it has just been an unbelievable experience that someone like you, who has been in this community a while and has got to know a lot of people, is still hearing horror stories about people who don't have their property fixed. You are still driving by places that have either not recovered or still have not been able to either reopen or fix their property in the way that they should. And it's not because they don't have insurance. There are some people who were underinsured. There are some people who didn't get the proper insurance, and those properties have suffered. But for the lion's share, the majority of the people, the frustration is paramount. It's obvious. It's frustrating. And I will tell you that it is a situation where, were it not for us being on the radio and educating people as to what their rights are and getting them to lawyers, there would probably be hundreds, if not thousands, of more people who would not have sought the kind of assistance that they have sought. And so all we can do is continue to educate and empower everyone and to make sure they understand that you should be paid all of the money that your insurance policy allows you to be paid, not more. But if the insurance company fails to timely pay you, there are severe consequences to the insurance company, and they could be made to pay a lot more, 2-3 times or any amount above that contract price if, as a result, you have suffered additional or different damages.
Can I ask you something? You know, you and I have talked a lot over the past year, 11 months, whatever it's been, you know, since you and I have hooked up. And I know that you're a motivation guy. I know that you're constantly thinking about your life and asking questions, and you're always proactive. I do want to ask just kind of a different kind of question. What would you say that you have learned in the past year from Hurricane Michael? Just in general, what have you learned? Because, you know, I think the answer to that would be pretty interesting, because you spent a lot of years in the insurance business, in the law, on the other side. We've had multiple conversations about that. But just in general, what would you say that you've learned?
From this storm, I learned that there were a remarkable amount of wonderful people in this community that placed an enormous amount of trust in the insurance company and waited much longer than typical people do in the misguided belief that their insurance company would fully compensate them. I learned that most people were reluctant to hire a lawyer, mostly because of disinformation that was out there by operatives, if you will, who really suggested that you stay away from lawyers. And as a result, people did not get made whole as a result. And in an acute situation like this, where you have a high tourist-driven population, in the sense that you have income derived from your ability to have services available to people, it was a bigger harm that was visited upon your community than other communities, because housing was devastated. People were having to drive to other locations, get other jobs. It was a very slow-moving wheel to get the city, county, and area back on its feet. And that tragedy was really awful. I can tell you that in past storms, you know, people in South Florida, for example, have gotten more educated and call me on day 2. I would bet that every single person who has hired us wished they had hired us even sooner than they did. And it's just a revelation that is interesting, but more devastating to this area because of the wonderful people and the compassion they had and the conservative nature of trusting their insurance company. I will tell you, though, that more claims have been paid on average in full as a result of me suing than in other cases. What I mean is that insurance companies are desirous of paying more money once we have got involved rather than litigating this for long periods of time and having to pay tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars of attorney's fees and costs and extra contractual damages because you guys had a Hurricane Category 5 storm that came across. And, I think that it is a chilling reminder that you have to take aggressive steps when you have an insurance company involved, even if you don't choose to sue. And I think that is really important for everyone, and that you need to make sure from this that you learn what you need in your insurance policy, and you get experts to educate you, whether that is us helping you or us sending you to other insurance experts, to make sure that you're covered in the future and to make sure that you understand that you have absolute rights to recover every dollar that is appropriately available to you.
Caller, you're up with Scott Mager from Mager Peruis in the Storm Help Team. Go ahead.
Yes, my question is, I was one of the lucky ones that didn't get right through the ringer with my insurance company. They paid me full policy limits on A, B, C, and D. But my question is, we're starting in the rebuilding process now. Am I going to have to fight them for the 25% law and ordinance?
If you have coverage for law and ordinance, which it sounds like you do, and the needs of your repair, in other words, you had to get impact windows or you had to get upgrades, do entitle you to recover those monies, you simply provide a supplemental claim to the insurance company. And if they paid you in full, there's no reason why they shouldn't pay you for the approved code upgrade or law and ordinance requirements. And if they don't, then you can proceed forward just like anybody else who hasn't been paid and pursue legal remedies to determine whether or not it makes sense to file a lawsuit or just to have a lawyer write a letter for you to support your damages. The key in all these things is to make sure you have good documentation from your contractor that shows exactly what is needed, and invoices, estimates that show the exact amount of damages that are necessitated by this law and ordinance so that you can get full recovery.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
Sure. Have a great day. Hope it helped.
Thanks for the phone call. By the way, you can call and you can get on the air. You can ask Scott Mager a question, 850-233-9988. You can also find Mager Peruis on Facebook at Mager Peruis, M-A-G-E-R, Mager Peruis, and on Twitter at Mager Peruis Law. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. If you got a call, got a question, light them up.
If it happens in Panama City, Kramer is talking about it. The Kramer Show, 6 to 9 daily on NewsTalk at 101.
Scott Mager from Mager Peruis and the Storm Help Team with us today on the phone. You can call 850-233-9988. 850-233-9988. On 2 days on the anniversary on Thursday, we'll have you on as we always do on Tuesday and Thursday. I was telling the audience earlier, I went back and was listening to some of the shows directly after the hurricane, and you really just don't. We've rebuilt a lot of the area. Has moved on, and we're digging out. But at that time, going back and listening to some of those shows, Scott, it really is amazing what we have been able to do. And if there's a sign of encouragement anywhere, it's just to look at how far we've come. It's really, it's really inspiring.
It really is. And I'll tell you that, when you put aside some of the awful frustration that people have, there has been a remarkable rebuilding process. And remember that rebuilding creates newness, which creates excitement. There are a lot of new structures. There's a lot of new building. There's a lot of new development. And what's happening is that after it gets all cleaned up, it becomes encouraging and exciting, and people get back to their lives. It's just we need to all pull together and figure out ways to help those who couldn't rebuild, either because they weren't given the proper insurance by uninformed insurance agents, or alternatively, they did not pursue claims which they otherwise obviously had. And so, it's a great thing when you see all the rebuilding, a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I think overall we should be encouraged, but we also want to equally encourage those who have not got fully paid to just make sure you've had a lawyer evaluate your claim to make sure that you're not leaving money on the table that you've contracted for and paid for to receive.
Yeah, which is hugely important, and can't say that enough. That the insurance company comes in and lowballs, and a lot of people just out of kind of panic just say okay, and then they take it and close off the claim, and then that's the end, when you really deserve a whole lot more. And another thing that I was talking about to the termite guy, he was talking about how he goes to these different homes, and he hears people say all the time that they either got screwed by the contractor or they can't find anything. And, when you talk to people like that are constantly out there going from home to home to home, some of the stories that they come up with about what they hear, oh my goodness.
Yeah, it is extraordinary, some of the things that have happened to people. And, even though we're trying our hardest to get the message out, there's a great many people who maybe aren't listening. You don't have the opportunity to hear what we've said over the last year and all the explanations we've given. And so they're not as educated. I will say that I think it's extraordinary if you think about how much education we've given and how much empowerment we've given. It really has been extraordinary. It really has been great how much, think about what you knew before I came on the telephone, and then how much more observant, aware, questioning that you have been as a result of that, and how you've even been able to help people by educating them as to things that they should be aware of, and how that ripple effect has profoundly helped thousands and thousands of people, because we're on the air educating them first. We're on the air empowering them and giving them that intel that they didn't know about. They had no idea was available to them.
Caller, you're up with Scott Mager. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Hey, Tom.
I do have a question, but, first I would like to thank Scott and let your listeners know that he's serious. He's the real deal. I was able to make myself 85% whole on my own with my insurance company, but I still had that other 15% lingering, and I tried for months and months and months to get that. It took Scott Mager's team 2 weeks to get that for me.
Wow.
So for that, thank you. Thank you so much. And so he's not kidding either. And the amount of fee that he's going to get off of that is barely enough for a car payment. So he will do it. Don't worry about the amount. Call Scott and get yourself made whole. So anyway, my question is, if I have an open claim still with the insurance company, and I want to change carriers, do I need to wait till that claim is complete to change carriers, or can you go ahead and move forward with a new carrier and then keep working with the old one to get made whole?
The latter. Your question is, can you change carriers even though you have an open claim? The answer is yes. The answer is they are contracted to pay you what they're going to pay you, regardless of whether you continue insurance with them. And just so that the listeners know, most of the time, since the insurance company has a section devoted to paying claims, that section has nothing to do with the people who sell you the insurance. And so what happens often is they don't even know that you've changed carriers. So it's not the same group of people involved. But from a legal standpoint, you have absolutely no obligation to stay with them. There's no benefit whatsoever to staying with them and waiting if you have a better price with better services that will enable you to get the coverage that you want.
Great. All right, guys. Thank you so much for taking my call. And, Scott, thank you again for everything you did for me.
Hey, thanks for the kind words, and thanks for calling in. And I really appreciate it. I mean, it's nice to hear that people are really empowered by what we're saying, and that what we're saying has some benefit to them.
How about that? 2 weeks. Wow. Caller, you're up with Scott Mager. Go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, hi. I have a public adjuster, and we're at the point of going with a lawyer now. And he told me to make sure that whoever I go with, I'm leaning towards you, of course, that that the lawyer make sure that they file first before they negotiate. Because if they go straight off with negotiation, public adjuster said, I will be stuck with all the legal fees. How does that work?
Sure. So the question of what you're entitled to in terms of getting the insurance company to pay legal fees, it is a good rule of thumb to file your lawsuit because there is a statute, Florida 627.428, that provides a right to recover all of your attorney's fees if you win $1. And so there is a motivation to do that. There is a law out there that says that you can get pre-suit, that is before you file, you can get attorney's fees. But I generally agree with the adjuster that if you have made all your efforts and the insurance company is refusing to pay, it's probably a good policy to go ahead and get your suit filed to start that clock running and to motivate the insurance company to say, hey, it's a good idea to pay because otherwise we're going to have Scott Mager charging us a fortune every day that we wait.
And that's what you would do. You would file first. You would not seek to negotiate first, correct?
Yeah, I would tell you that. Let me answer it for you this way. As a general rule, I would probably file, but it depends on the circumstances. For example, I want to get you your money. So if I can make you whole because I believe I can pick up a phone and I can get the insurance company to pay you and then tell the insurance company they ought to throw a little extra money in for the attorney's fees, then I want to do that because my duty is to make you whole first. And so depending on the circumstance, sometimes you can call up an insurance company and say, I'm going to file. You need to pay this entire claim, and you can get the claim paid and ask them to pay some money in attorney's fees. Having said that, most of the time you are correct that when you file a lawsuit, it starts the clock running and it makes the insurance company want to settle, particularly if your claim is fairly clear in the fact that there are damages that resulted from the hurricane.
So is it fair to say that depending on the circumstances, I could get stuck with the legal fees?
It's possible that you would have to pay a percentage to your attorney, but it depends upon the facts. So if I was handling your claim, we would evaluate whether it made sense to call the insurance company and try to get enough money to pay you and your attorney. If we felt that that was not a good idea or was not as profitable for you to do that from the standpoint of being made whole, we would immediately file suit and then have discussions with the insurance company. And probably if you've been trying and you've made all the efforts that you can to resolve this outside of court, I probably would file suit, get the clock running, and get the insurance company to understand that it makes more economic sense to pay you and compensate the lawyer for your time so you could be made as whole as possible. And if they fail to pay, then you could end up with more money as a penalty for their failure to pay.
Okay. Thank you.
I hope it helps, and I hope you have a great day.
Yeah.
By the way, to contact Scott, just so you know, because you said you were thinking about using him, the number is 844-800-LAWS. That's to get in touch with Scott and his crew. 844-800-LAWS. You can also find them, too, on Facebook and Twitter. Very easy to do on Facebook. It's Major Peruis. On Twitter, at Major Peruis Law. Back with more Scott next.
This is the Kramer Show on the Good Old Boy Network. News Talk at 101. Now live.
Special program live from Uranus.
And local in the morning, right here in Panama City. This is Kramer in the Morning on News Talk at 101.
7:38. Few days away from the year anniversary of Hurricane Michael. Joining us today, like he always does on Tuesdays and Thursdays, Scott Mager from Mager Peruis and the Storm Help Team. Taking your phone calls, 850-233-9988. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
Yes. Scott Mager, he is my attorney, and I want to find out. My wife passed away, and what do I need to do about notifying? If the case is in both of our names, what do I do?
First, let me say I'm terribly sorry, and our sympathies are with you, and our prayers are with you, and it's just awful. In terms of what you need to do, if you'll call me or Brian, offline, we'll explain to you how we go about notifying the insurance company so that it doesn't affect your claim in any way. There is a disclosure that we can make and, a filing that we can make that will process the claim without any further delay.
Okay. I haven't heard anything about my claim for about 4 or 5 weeks. So I just wondered about that also.
It's when you file suit, the defense, what happens is that you have to serve the state of Florida, and that takes a little bit of time. And then on top of that, then they get assigned to a lawyer who then has another 20 days to respond once they get that. And so there's always a lag in time that goes into allowing the defendant the opportunity to evaluate the claim. And so there'll be a delay in time. But what I'd recommend is pick up the phone and call after, when you hang up, either dial me or Brian, and we'll take care of you and make sure that this is seamless. And it's just, we're really sorry for your loss.
Yeah. Is that the 844 number?
Yeah, you can dial either 844-800-LAWS or you can dial 954-763-2800, whichever you prefer, and call up and ask. And if for any reason you don't reach somebody, just make sure that they find Brian or me, and they'll search us out and find us and get a hold of us for you, or we'll immediately call you back.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You have a great day, sir.
Thank you, sir. And of course, our sympathies are with you. Patty on Facebook. Here is a question, and it's kind of funny that she asked this because this may be still something that people just don't, haven't picked up on. And I take for granted that I get to sit and listen to you for an hour. Other people may not, and they may not have heard the answer to this question. She says, what's the difference in using, pull this up. What's the difference in using a lawyer or a PA? Patty. So, again, I'll leave it to you to explain, and that might be something that obviously people just don't know.
Sure. A public adjuster, in the pre-suit process before a suit is filed, can help you to adjust your claim by going out and getting an estimate for you and populating that and communicating with the insurance company. And many people have had success with public adjusters early in cases because the public adjusters can get that estimate quickly to the insurance company. The public adjusters have a disadvantage in that they can't file a suit. The insurance companies know they can't file a suit. And so it is often difficult for many public adjusters to get an entire claim paid in full. And whether they're great adjusters or not so great adjusters, what a lawyer has the ability to do is to file a suit and then make the insurance company pay the attorney's fees, which essentially can make your claim free. As I've mentioned, ironically, lawyers can end up being cheaper than public adjusters and other people. And I've always encouraged people, if you really wanted to get a public adjuster, hire a lawyer and tell them to hire the public adjuster, because after a claim is denied, you can recover even the public adjuster fees under the statute. And I always encourage people, no offense to contractors, adjusters, and other people, to immediately hire a very experienced lawyer for two principal reasons. Reason number one is that if the insurance company is aware that this lawyer has a vast amount of experience, they're going to recognize it makes more sense to immediately pay and not incur fees that they're going to pay to their own lawyers and then fees and costs to you, number one. And number two, a lawyer can often tell you specifically what is covered and what is not, so you don't have pie-in-the-sky dreams and you think you're going to get all this recovery from some inflated estimate, and you realize that some of the things aren't covered. So I encourage everyone to get a lawyer involved. We have lots of public adjusters who send us cases after they've tried to get all the money they can get. But I can't emphasize enough, if it was the storm and it was my family, the day after the storm, I'd hire a lawyer. And then oftentimes we'll call a public adjuster or an estimator to go out to the job and work as a team. And so it can be a very beneficial thing to do. But I can't emphasize enough, and I know you've done this too. If you get a great lawyer that's representing you, I am telling you, you have a significant advantage over not having a lawyer. That's just statistically proven in case after case. In the thousands of cases that I have seen, I can tell you that by far the most money gotten is when a lawyer's involved.
Caller 850-233-9988. You're up with Scott Mager. Go ahead.
A lot of our discussion is centered around, of course, insurance companies, which I know they need to be held accountable. But, you know, there's a lot of people out there that their insurance companies have done right, but they're having trouble with their contractors. A lot of out-of-town contractors swooped in here and had people sign AOBs, and they're not holding up on their end of the deal. It's kind of hard to, how do you go about getting out of an AOB? And, you know, just, we need some advice on these crooked contractors and how to deal with them. You know, a lot of people sign AOBs not knowing what they were. They just weren't, maybe the AOBs are pretty simplistic in that they don't include some of the things that the Florida law requires because out-of-town contractors brought them from other states. Just need some advice on how to deal with the crooked contractors. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks a lot. The reality is that when you have a storm, you have unscrupulous people who will come into an area and take advantage of people. Just like there used to be in the olden days, people who would sell water for $5 a bottle, you know, after the storm. There are groups of people, whether they be public adjusters or contractors, in some cases even lawyers, that don't know what they're doing and are coming in and making promises they can't keep. If I had $1 for every time a public adjuster or contractor said you don't need a lawyer or lawyers are horrible, and then it turned out that the lawyers are the ones that saved the day, I wouldn't have to work again. Having said that, when it comes to contractors, it's important that you do several things. Number one, if somebody has signed an assignment of benefits after July 1st, there are specific requirements in those assignments of benefits, or they are void. They are not enforceable. And you can check the statute or call me offline and I can tell you. As for those that entered into assignment of benefits before that time, the most important thing is, what does your contract say? Not just the assignment of benefits, but what does the contract say that the contractor is going to do, and when is that contractor going to complete the items, and how are they being paid? And if you look at your contract, oftentimes there are requirements that the contractor do the work within a time certain. You as the individual have to be responsible for the contracts you sign, so you have to look at those and make sure that they actually protect you. If you have a problem and you have an unscrupulous contractor, you can report them to the state. You can report them to the local entities. If, in fact, they've taken your money and haven't done any work, you can go to the police. It is important to enforce these things so that we make sure we get people who don't belong on the streets off the streets. It's equally important for all of you to remember that there are lawyers out there that will help you with contractors. If you're not sure, you can dial the 844-800-LAWS number, and we can refer you to lawyers that do nothing but, work with construction defect cases and can work with, getting you out of contracts if, in fact, there is a valid reason to get out of them. Otherwise, your remedy is through what's called a breach of contract action. But you need to enforce the contract and make sure the contractor is doing their work and document that in writing, much like we talked about when we talked about documenting in writing to the insurance company.
Although we may not know the names of